Hey viewers, today we're on Sandpatch Grade and we're going to have a look at the SD40 that's part of the New Journeys expansion pack. This SD40 has come over from the Clinchfield Railroad and it's a little bit different to the others. It's got the CSX stripe, it's got a grouse horn, but driving it is a little different. Let's just jump into the cab now. Let's turn on the cab lights. And let's start running through things. So first up, engine run and control and fuel pump. Now they should have already been on because the engine's running and the engine can't run without them. Uh-oh. Anyway, put on the generator field because that's what lets us move. That means that we actually generate the electricity to drive this thing. It's a diesel electric locomotive. And let's put in our gauge lights. And I put on our step lights just before. Setting our headlights to front, and let's pop the window open because it sounds better, even though there's a bit of snow on the hills. Alright, next up we've got our brakes. Let's just look at the gauges. Right now we've got about 25 pounds in the brake cylinder, and we've got 140 pounds in the main reservoir, and we've got 0 in the brake pipe. That's the red needle. The main reservoir is the white needle in this train. Alright, let's cut our brakes in, which is a little bit different. All the locos on Sandpatch now have to do this. So we cut it in and put it into lead. And we're going to release the brakes and we're going to watch what happens to those gauges. Alright, you can see the brake pipe is coming up. It's going to go up to 90 pounds that this particular loco is set to. Nearly there. Once we hit the 90, you'll see the right-hand needle will settle and then it'll go to 0. There it goes. Okay, good stuff. Now let's put on some independent brakes so we don't roll away. You can see the white needle's going up again, so we've got a good amount of independent brake on. Let's talk about the selector lever now. That's this one here. So this locomotive does have dynamic brakes. You need to have the switch on there, and you need to have the dynamic brake cutout up there, also set. So let's talk about the selector. It has 4 positions, but you need to have your reverser in first. Let's put that in. Let's put it in forwards. Okay. It's got 4 positions. 1, 2, 3, 4 going this way. And you set it to the number of locos you've got. So we've got 2 in our consist here. So we want to set it to 2. And the idea of this is it supplies enough voltage on the wires to control the dynamic brakes on the other loco. If you've got more than 4, just set it to 4. That's fine. Now, the game doesn't really do anything with this end of the selector lever. It needs to be set to something where you can't move, but it doesn't really seem to care what. It's the dynamic brakes that you really need it for. So with your reverser in forward or reverse, and your throttle in idle, and you should have had it there for about 10 seconds to let it wind down, you then get onto your selector lever, cycle through to off, and then into B for dynamic brakes. And now the throttle lever becomes your dynamic brake lever instead of being the throttle. So we'll see that in a moment when we drive, but let's just set it to 2 for the moment and let's see what else we need to do up here. So we are a controlling unit with another one coupled at the long hood end. So if you look at the front of the loco, that's the short hood, and the longer part is the long hood. Surprise! Let's jump back in the cab. So we set it to that. That's a very sensitive little switch. Now, we are almost all set. Let's just make sure our radio's on. The radio is turned on, so that's good. That's fine. We're good to go. Let's just jump in the chair. I've never found this loco actually turned off, so it should be fine. Now, first up, let's turn on banking comm. The Clinchfield locos don't actually have banking comm because, well, they didn't have it. And we've got contact signal on a button on the radio here. So right now, we're going to go and get some carriages and we're going to go for a little bit of a drive. So I'm releasing the independent brake and throttling up a little. And away we go. Let's just throttle that back a bit. And let's have a look at the map, because we have to go and get some carriages. Points are not set. Let's fix that. It's the kind of thing you really should do before you start, but you know. More points that aren't set. Lovely days. Lovely days. And we seem to be pretty good going that way. And we're going to go up here and we're going to get some carriages in a moment once we finish setting all the points. Because running through points is a bad idea. Most of the time it won't actually impact you in the game, but it should. It just doesn't. If you are facing points, then you'll probably derail. Or just go down the wrong track. Look at all these. They're all wrong. Make my day. Every single one of them's wrong. Well, nearly. Alright, looks like we are now set to go into the right line where our carriages actually are. Well, they're a long way away. All the way at the other end of the yard. Look at that. All the way down there. Okay. That's fine. Because on the way, let's speed this up. And I'm going to be speeding deliberately. I want to go up to about 20 mile an hour. Because I want to show you the dynamics. Alright, we're now speeding way too fast. So let's just throttle that back down a bit. And now, we're in idle. So let's go down to the dynamic brake setting. And now we're going to throttle up again. And you should see it start to slow down. There they go. So you can see the amps are powering up in the orange mark there, and you can see them on the gauge as well. Now in dynamics it sounds a little bit different to it does when it's powering. And it's bringing our speed back down now. Now remember, if you've got the train brake on, you must bail off the independents so that you've got zero pressure in the cylinder here on the locomotive. It's fine to have your train brakes on. Alright, we're back down to speed now. So let's go out of dynamics. We'll just let those set on 0 to calm down for a little while. And once it's been about 10 seconds, then we can go back to our proper selector, which in our case is 2. Alright, let's power this up a little. Let's go get our carriages. Now in the run we're doing at the moment, we don't really need banking comm at all, but if you find yourself on the end of a long train, you're very much going to need it. Now, don't worry too much about the BR pipe airflow, brake pipe airflow. I don't think that actually works. So, yeah. Of course, we're speeding again, but that's okay. Just in case you need to know the difference, if you turn lead axle sand on, it's dropping sand continuously. So this is good on very wet rail when you're trying to get going. If you press the button, it drops it only for as long as you're actually pressing the button, and it does it on all the sanding pipes. And yes, I know I'm speeding. It's okay, let's just ignore that. Otherwise, this tutorial will go on for a little bit too long. New livery looks quite nice. The rest of the loco is as it was on Clinchfield. Except that it now has banking comm. Clinchfield does not have that. Banking comm, if you've never heard of it before, is not a real railway term. It's Dovetail's way of emulating the idea of a DPU. And essentially what banking comm is doing in behind the scenes is it's telling the other locomotives what to do to mimic what you've told your locomotive to do. We're not too far away from our train now. So I'll just take you down there and show you how to couple up. And then we'll take it out for a bit of a spin. So this one's just a bit of a shunting tutorial. Alright, we're getting quite close now, so I'll stop the amount of speed I'm doing. Now I'm just going to use the independent brake to slow us down. You can see the brake pipe pressure is coming up, and our speed is starting to drop up there on the speedo. You can see that on the HUD as well. I've only got the HUD on so you can see what's going on. I don't normally use it. You can use the train brake to slow light engine movements if you want to, but generally speaking the independent brake is more responsive than the train brake and will act more directly and more quickly. That's why it's often called the direct brake. We're approaching the cars that we want to pick up now. So I'll let us get a little bit closer and then I will finish slowing down to about 4 miles an hour. Let's start that now. We're not in a rush. Alright, let's drop the independent brakes off. You'll often see a little bit of residual pressure in the brake cylinder. It's not a big deal. Almost ready to couple. Our speed's nice and low. As long as you're at about 4 miles an hour or less, you'll be fine. Clunk. Alright, we're coupling up. Just waiting for our brake cylinder to come off. Now we might have popped the PCS then, I think, when we coupled up. I don't have a PCS open light on, but I have a faint suspicion we have, because if you notice our brake cylinder pressure went through the roof and our brake pipe pressure is down a bit. There we go, it seems to be recovering. Interestingly, what the HUD's saying and what the gauges are saying seems to be a little bit different. So the brake pipe pressure on the gauge didn't actually change. That's interesting. But the brake pipe pressure on the HUD did, and that's gradually climbing back up now. Our loco brakes have released. Now let's just see where it wants us to go. I think it wants us to go backwards. It does indeed. It wants to go up there. Okay. Let's go and see what points we have to set to make that happen. So we are pretty much set until we get here. So we want to set these points. And we want to set these points, and that'll take us up to the right place. Alright, let's get out of the map. Reverser into reverse now. Well, it should be in reverse. Why aren't you moving? No, not throttle. The reverser wouldn't obey the rail driver for a moment there. It's okay. Let's throttle up now. Just be nice and gentle while we're stretching out. So our train's starting to move now. It's only a little one, so we don't have to be that gentle, but freight, you always want a nice, gentle, soft starts. Because if you've got a long train, particularly on uneven terrain, you'll break couplers. It doesn't actually get simulated in the game, but you should behave that way anyway, because you are a train operator, engineer, or driver, or pilot, depending on where you come from in the world. Speed's coming up nicely, so let's pick another notch because the whole train is stretched out now. Our brake pipe is now pretty much recovered up to nearly the 90 it's supposed to be, so that's good. And we can throttle off now. Again, gentle. Rail driver often skips notches, which is a bit of a pain, but that's life. Looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Sounds nice too. I'm quite happy with this loco. What a reward. Should run the bell because when you're shunting in America, apparently you're meant to. I do find it just a little bit annoying, but that's okay. It is a nice metal strike bell, which does match what's on the loco there. Now this locomotive is predominantly used for switching duties, although there are plenty of road services with the SD40 in the consist, and you can select it to lead road services too, so no issues there. Remember, we're heading off to the left on this switch. Yep. There's our first go via. I was just checking to make sure because there's a red dwarf signal there and I did not want to run through it. Now, are we set for the rest of this trip? Looks like we are, yes. And we want to start slowing down now, so I'll apply just a little bit of train brake. Jump into the cab, let's look at the effect that's had. We've got a reduction in the brake pipe pressure down to 80, and our train brakes, our cylinders come up to 20. The cylinder does go up at double the rate that the brake pipe goes down. That's quite normal for Westinghouse braking systems. Otherwise known as Wabtec. We may not get quite far enough to do this. That's okay, we'll release the brakes and gently throttle back up and finish the movement. We're going somewhere else now. Let's just have a look on the map, see where we're going, make sure we're set up for it. And we're not, of course. 1,000,001 brake levers, and we have to set all of them. Now you could drive along and do this, I suppose, and just stop at each one, but yeah, nah, I don't think so. Right then, that puts us on the right path. Brakes off. Let's go and watch that happening. Brakes coming off and throttle up. You can see our power meters going up there on the right. Brakes have come down to 0, and that's center gauge with the white needle. It's a short train, so I'm taking liberties a little with the throttle and popping up to notch 4. If it was a long train, that would be a bad idea, but it's not. Alright, let's throttle back. Now, when you're shunting a short train like this one, look at Mr. Sterry over there. He keeps watching us. What's going on, Mr. Sterry? But when you're shunting a short train like this one, you might not even use the train brake. You might just use the independent. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly acceptable practice, especially on the level like this. What I mean by on the level is we're on flat ground, more or less. Only 0.2%, near enough to flat. We have to uncouple and then move the locos again after this, so we'll finish that off and that'll be the end of this tutorial. So driving the train, once you get it set up, it's pretty much the same as the others. No issues anywhere. Should enjoy running it, I think. It sounds nice. It drives quite nicely. Its physics are very good. And most importantly, it's got an ace horn. Look at that lovely pallet racking over there. I need some of that for my garage. Maybe they'll give me some. Probably not. Yeah, we are pretty close to where we're going to drop these cars off. I've throttled off. Let's jump back into the cab so we can see what happens again. I am going to use the terrain brake. 150 odd yards to go. If you're a metric person, well, yards and meters are near enough the same thing if you're just playing a game. Yes, I know, comment haters, they're not exactly the same. Alright, let's start braking now. We're going to overshoot a little, but that's fine. Alright. Now, I thought it wanted me to uncouple some cars here, but no, it just wants me to... Oh, okay, we're going to push them along somewhere else. Great. Okay. Let's have a look. Where does it want to go now? It wants to go down there. Alright then. I'm just looking at the light blue line on the map if you've not seen it before. And I'm just making the points match it. That looks okay. Can be a little hard to tell sometimes, but that looks okay to me. What about this one? No, that's fine. And we're going down there now. All right. So, need to switch back into... Or do we just make sure we are idle? That is not letting me switch. Why not? Alright, for some reason it thought we were still throttling, but we were not. Let people know we're moving. And thank you, rail driver, for grabbing 4 notches when 1 would have done. I was just powering up a little bit because we're going uphill before I released the brakes, and we've got some amps, so I've released them now. No hill start control in a locomotive this old. You've got to do it yourself. Doesn't hurt the locomotive to power it up and produce some amps without it moving, as long as it's for a short time and it's not too much power. If you sat there in notch 8, you would melt your motors. It's not a bad little service, this one. It's a bit of a play. This tutorial's a little longer than I meant it to be. But that's okay, because YouTube being YouTube, you'll only watch the first 7 or 8 minutes of it anyway. And I'm having fun. Just going to power off now and let it coast. We are going downhill again. This time I'm just going to stop with the independent brake, which will take a little bit longer. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of brake now. You can see the brake pipe has not dropped, that's still on 90, and our loco brake cylinder's gone up to 10. See, it's starting to have an effect on the speed. You can hear our squeaky brake blocks. Now, it depends on the setup of the locomotive. Sometimes the independent will brake on one locomotive, and sometimes it will brake on all the leading locomotives. Let's release our Indy now. You can see the brake cylinder pressure's gone back down to near enough 0. Now when I stop this, I'm going to use the train brake rather than the Indy, for one simple reason. I want the train brakes to actually be applied when we uncouple. Because as part of the uncoupling process, you're losing control of your consist. And the person doing the uncouple will drop all the air out of the rake of carriages anyway. But it doesn't hurt them to already have the brakes on. It's very bad practice to leave the air in the carriages if you leave a set. In a yard they might tolerate it where it's dead flat, but if there's a slope of any kind, definitely not. Just a light brake. All right. I'm just letting some more air out. Let's pop out and uncouple. Wrong end. I want to go up here. Now you can get out of the cab and you can walk around and you can do this, or you can just use the 3 camera like I am. If you can find the lever, there it is. All right, we are uncoupled. Back in the cab. That's not recognising I go back into idle with the rail driver. That's a little bit annoying. Alright, brakes off, and I'll power up because we don't want to roll back into our carriages. We're just light engines. Jumping up to notch 3 is not a big deal at all. Should have done that first, I know. Alright. Now, where are we going? They look fine. They all look fine. In fact, all of our points look okay this time. So let's throttle that off now. Not going to watch ahead because we will watch our gauges when we brake again. Nearly there. We are going uphill, so gravity being what gravity is slowing us down. So I'll stop again with the independent brake when we get there. As we approach, I'll start slowing us down a bit. Let's give it a tiny bit of brakes now. Just want to see the brake needle move just a little. There we go. It's about 5 pounds. That'll be fine. And bring it up to about 20, near enough, 15 to 20, and we'll stop. Overran the marker just a little. So guess what? It's going to make me go back. Anything less than 5 is usually fine, but there we go. That'll do there fine. Okay. Didn't get time to shut it down before it ended, but you would switch off your generator switch now. All right. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial. I hope it's been helpful. If you've got any questions, chuck them down there in the comments. If you liked this and you find it helpful, please subscribe and click the tinkly thing so you get the notifications of new stuff. Alrighty. Thank you very much. Bye now. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I always like to get your feedback in the form of likes and comments because they help me understand what you want. Give the channel a subscribe and click on the tinkly thing so you don't miss out on any new stuff. And thanks for your ongoing support. And please, be safe out there.